Hello, law teachers, and welcome to Learning is Not Quiet presents Verbs and Their Tenses. Today, I'm going to talk all about how I teach about verbs and verb tense in my classroom. I'm going to talk about some of the strengths of the products found in my Teacher's Paid Teacher Store, as well as some common pitfalls you might want to avoid. I am also going to talk about different differentiation strategies for students that you can meet the needs of all of your learners. Please note that this is a very important concept for English speakers of other languages because this is one of the hardest things to learn in English because it often just doesn't make sense and has different rules and there's a lot of irregularities. Even in Spanish, and I have a master's degree in Spanish linguistics, I practice Spanish all the time. I have Spanish-speaking family members. I read and I write in Spanish. This is still one of the hardest things for me to do in Spanish 100% of the times is conjugate every verb correctly. So just be mindful of that. Be compassionate to English speakers who might have a different dialect, but most especially our English language learning population. So this product was designed, especially the game, with those students in mind to really help them develop that skill. And so those students are acknowledged, but also the students who are already really great at verb conjugation, or differentiating which verb goes with the subject correctly, matching the subject and the verb together. That's called conjugation in fancy linguistic language. But those students who are really good at conjugation, it helps attach more vocabulary to that so that they can learn other languages, they can have better grammar when speaking and writing, and also just so that they can understand the concept even more deeply. So with that, let's get started. If you're watching this video, it's probably because you have purchased or are interested in purchasing this verb subject verb agreement, tense, what are verbs, games, activity practice notes. You might also be interested in purchasing this distance learning version or this slap it verb agreement game. Please note that if you purchase the paper version, the Slap It Verbs game is included, but not in the distance learning version. This is because it's very difficult to play games in a distance learning format, and that's why the distance learning version is a little bit cheaper. Also note that this version has a PowerPoint that is meant to be projected with the activities and lessons versus this product has those slides when needed embedded into the actual product. So just be mindful of all of those things as you purchase. Of course, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or if you purchase this product and have questions about how the directions work, how to use it, even a simple thing, feel free to reach out. I am always happy to answer your questions. It does not bother me, and I am here to support you. So with that, let's get started with our verb slap it game. And before I say this, this was a game that was very common in my childhood in Michigan with actual playing cards. So I've kind of modified that to make it appropriate for a verb agreement game. And really the purpose of this game, note that prices are subject to change. The purpose of this game is to get a bunch of subjects and a bunch of verbs in front of students and make it natural in their head. Students need to be exposed to this so many times, especially if they're an English language learner, to get this right. And this is an amazing station for your English language learners. So if you're doing something else that is a little bit above the level, especially if they have a lower reader score, this is a great center to put them to a different table, have them practice this, and this really just exposes them to a lot of subject-verb agreement. What do I mean when I say subject-verb agreement? What I mean is that when I have the word my mom, and then I have the verb sings, those two words go together, right? If I said my mom sing, that doesn't make sense. So that doesn't have subject-verb agreement. So when you open up this product, there's going to be directions, but there's also going to be different sets of cards. There are these orangey cards and these green cards. The orangey cards are subjects. The green cards are verbs. And so the point of this is to match the subjects to the verbs. So you can actually make this into a really quick file folder game if that is what you want, especially if you have students who are really struggling with this concept. Just put all of these down, put all of these down, and have students match them, right? It's just matching game. That's one way to do it. You can also do this as a memory-ish kind of game where students flip them all over, and if they flip over two cards and they have matching subject-verb agreement, then they get to keep them as positive points. So those are just two extra ways to have this as a literature circle station. Let's get into how the actual game works. Quick note, when you're cutting these cards, I highly recommend going and finding a middle or high school student who's in need of service hours after you laminated them. give them to them a couple days before you need them or whenever, and they will cut them out for you. It's a win-win situation. It means you don't have to spend your whole evening cutting up cards, and that high school student gets to do their service hours at a time that's convenient for them in front of the TV. So win-win. Make sure you don't put extra work on yourself. As one of my teachers used to say, one of my co-teachers, work smarter, not harder. And that's a way I've learned to work smarter over the years. So what you're going to do with these 2 decks of cards, you have your orange cards on one side and you have your green cards on the other side. And they are flipped face down. So what you do is you flip over subject card, which this is backwards, so I'm going to put it here, and then the predicate card. So this says, my mom sings, right? My mom sings. Those are correct. So what the persons would do who are playing this, I recommend no more than 4. You need at least 2 to play this to be successful. They slap the cards, and I emphasize with my students, a pitfall is this can become a game of slapping each other's hands, that if you injure someone else when playing this game, you automatically lose and get a clip down or whatever classroom management strategies you have in place. So really set that expectation. We're not hitting each other. We're not slapping the cards as hard as we can. We're just trying to identify who got there first. So my mom sings, this person would get to keep those cards. We keep flipping it over. You has written. Those don't work together. So if you slapped it, you would have to give up one of your cards as a positive point. If you let it go, then no one gets a point and you move it on. Once you have a stack of cards here that has built up and you run out, you can reshuffle them and put them back in the side piles. So that's the Slap It Verbs game. And my puppy really wants to be a part of this video. So say hi, puppy. I'm part of the video now. Okay, so now we're going to move on to away from the Slap It Verb game. Remember, this is included in the paper version. And now I'm going to explain this version and this distance learning version. Obviously, you can use these products however works best for you. How I have designed it is to be a 5-day set of lessons. And so the goal here is to really build up what I call the drawer of reading strategies and grammar knowledge. Puppy really wants to be in the video. So you want to build up this drawer of understanding of a concept. And so usually when we talk about grammar especially, we do a lot of worksheets. We practice and practice and practice and do worksheets. So in our drawer of experience about this topic, there's only one activity. Even though we might have seen it 100,000 times, we've only seen it one way. And what I want is students to have a bunch of feelings, a bunch of experiences, a bunch of emotions related to verbs and tenses. So I scaffold this, meaning that the first days are easiest and the last days are harder, and they build on each other throughout the week. Obviously, not every week is going to have 5 days. We have snow days and parent-teacher conferences and choir concerts and whatever else. So make this work for you, and you can definitely combine several days together if needed. So the first day is usually an introduction activity. It's not very rigorous. It is really just getting students to have an experience of like, what does this mean outside of reading and writing? The second day is meant to do a lot of direct teaching, really giving students some direct instruction using the PowerPoint. And there's also usually some coloring pages, interactive notebooks, that kind of stuff comes on day 2. Days 3 and 4 are that more traditional style of teaching where it's more worksheets. I try to make the stories as interesting as possible, but also, engaging and practicing the stuff that students really need to do. And then finally, on that 5th day, there is a Broadway musical mania where we apply what we've learned and we use it with Broadway. So with that, the first day is describe your day. So what you're doing is you have to describe what happened yesterday, except you can only use ing words. The reason I do yesterday is because I usually do this in the morning, so there's not a lot that's happened in the morning. You can, of course, describe your day that has happened that day. And what this gets kids to realize is that we can actually tell a pretty good story using just ing words, because verbs are important for every sentence. So it kind of gets students to think about all of these different verbs. So like waking, sleeping, eating, chewing, whatever it might be, walking, riding. It doesn't give the full story, so there's still things missing, but we can certainly tell a lot just from verbs. So it gives the importance of verbs while also emphasizing how they cannot tell the full story on their own. So that's that activity. And it also gives them a bank of ing verbs that they know before we attach this to the rest of the lesson. So day 2, our direct instruction. This is the coloring page. I really believe in coloring pages because they really help students visualize. Again, we're adding experiences and different activities to that reading strategies grammar drawer. That being said, for some students, they really hate coloring. And so I have learned to move this to a extra credit. So I will keep this in folders in the back of my classroom, and when students are finished early, or if they want some extra credit to do over the weekend or over break or in the evening, they just grab some and then they color it and they turn it into me for an extra credit grade. This is helpful because it really focuses students on coloring in each of those letters and really helps them visualize what was on that page that they can rely back on in the future. Okay, so then we have an interactive notebook where students are sorting the verbs as being past tense, present tense, and future tense. I like to do this. Now, if you have a class that is a little bit more ESOL, more special education, or just needs a little bit more direct instruction, I would explain what these 3 things are first. If you have a class that's a little bit more advanced, you can just have them try to sort it on their own and then kind of notice patterns. So things that are in the present tense have ing, things that are in the past tense have ed, stuff like that really comes up when doing it in an indirect way versus direct way. So that's a way you can differentiate it. This is an awesome activity. This blindfold directions, I love doing this activity. So for this one, this is on day 3. You're going to give directions to your partner. You may only use verbs to get them to find the object directed by your teacher. You may not use prepositions or even articles and conjunctions like left, right, and the. Only verbs. So I have students do this on a separate sheet of paper. This is really funny. Something I emphasize first is that stop and go are directions, and those are really important. But it's really funny to watch students hide something, and then the other person is like, turn, stop, go. Again, this is kind of similar to that first day activity. So if you want, you can move this to the first day where it gets them identifying verbs, practicing what verbs mean, and also seeing how much story they can tell with just using verbs and what is missing. And so that's what's really key here is make sure you do not skimp on the amount of time. When they're done, when they found the object, they go back to their seats and they fill in the reflection because that tells volumes about what students already know about verbs and what they can apply. Okay, also on day 3 is this verbs coloring by code. Again, this is kind of a low-level, level 1 thinking kind of activity, but it gives them to practice and it's more fun because it involves coloring. For my students who really hate coloring, I just have them highlight it in the colors given. And for this one, these are the words that students, especially language learners, struggle to sort the most. Be, go, am, is, are, like. Those are really, really challenging. So that's why there's a whole activity just focused on those specific verbs. Then we get to day 4. There is a verb tense practice where they have to plug it into the sentence. I go over some test prep strategies where I say the plug and chug, where we take one of the answers, we plug it in, and see if it chugs. That was a strategy that we were taught in Michigan when I was growing up, and it has served me well over many years of teaching. Next, we have select the verb. Again, these are 2 that are very similar to how they would be asked on a standardized test, and that's why they're on day 4. You can take these as an actual grade in your grade book. The other activities, not so much. It's up to how you grade and are as a teacher. And then day 5, we have Well, You Will Be Found, which is from Dear Evan Hansen. This is a great song to talk about social media and bullying and friendship and other things like that. So it's a great jump board into other conversations. With Broadway musicals, there's a whole other video and product on this as well. But the first time through, I have students just read it quietly to themselves. The second time through, I have them look for particularly good examples of word choice. So for this one, it might be when the dark comes crashing through. That's much better than when the dark comes in. The third time, I have them draw a picture to help visualize what's going on. And then the fourth time, I have us practice different strategies. So in this one, I would have them identify with different colored markers all of the different verbs that are found in this particular lyrics. This is a great musical and a great song. Then after that, I take this as an assessment grade. We have the You Will Be Found test prep, and it practices not just verbs, but as all the other concepts that I've been building up in their reading strategies and grammar drawers throughout the year. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed this product and this video, there are so many more like it, so many more reading strategies and grammar weeks available, as well as this Reading Strategies Back to the Basics bundle that is 50% off. If you like the Broadway musical stuff, there is a whole product and video devoted to this, as well as book clubs to put all of this stuff into practice in a meaningful and awesome way. Thank you so much for teaching and encouraging the next generation of readers and writers. You are always my heroes. Adios.